You're listening to the AID Network.
Hello, friend. Welcome back to Brickey's Guide to Breaking into Hollywood. I am Brickey. This is my guide to breaking into the entertainment industry. An industry that I've always been fascinated with, always wanted to be a part of, and in some ways I have broken into it time and time again. Today's episode, a little bit of a different pick. I combed over the entire archive of 800 episodes available at aidpodcast.com, and the Alex Pardee episode stuck out to me in particular because many of you may know Alex as being a fine artist or a graphic artist or a commercial artist, however you want to label that part of Alex's career. But I don't know if you know this, but Alex also dabbles in Hollywood. He's been hired before to be a concept designer, a character designer, and he's been spending a lot of his overtime hours, if you will, the last couple of years, working on building worlds, building stories, building all of these big universes that he's been pitching to Hollywood. At the moment, doesn't have a project of that caliber to report back to everybody, but the meetings keep happening, people are interested, and it's building in real time. So I thought it would be interesting to bring on a visual artist that's probably not too far off from what you're doing. You know, a guy who, put it easily, draws pictures for a living, right? That kind of a career. And sort of hear how he's trying to break in to the entertainment industry. If you listen back to a couple episodes ago when we had Turn Your Art into Entertainment, all of those producer guys, the number one thing they said you could have is to be a world builder. And Alex is building a very dark, a very intimidating, a very scary, a very melty world of his own. And if you know his artwork, it doesn't look like anybody else's. If your artwork is trying to stand out from the flock, I would suggest getting into making some t-shirts, some stickers, some banners, some posters. Make sure that you're selling your artwork out to as many eyes as possible to grow your brand and grow your income in the same way. Go to jackprince.com, jakprince.com/circle of trust. They're a sponsor of every episode of Adventures in Design. And if you're looking to get your artwork out to more eyeballs, just go through their website and shop and just think any of these things with my artwork on it, how could it make my world better? We talked to Alex Pardee about this breaking into Hollywood, the transitioning into working for clients and keeping his style, but doing it for others. And I don't know if you know this about Alex, but he really describes himself as a hardcore introvert. It's kind of hard to tell when you're around him because he's so social and so caring and such a fun guy to be with, but he does see himself as an introvert. And he talks a lot in this interview about breaking out of that shell, getting into those awkward moments, and figuring out the best way to tell his story and how it feels when people react to that. This is an artist who's breaking into the world of entertainment. This is a guy who's an introvert that's learning how to go out and pitch to studios and to tell his story and really to tell why he's worthy of their budget, of their resources, of their time. And I have a feeling that it's just a matter of time before he finds the right fit, because if you look at his world, it is so insanely unique. There's nothing that looks like Alex Pardee other than Alex Pardee. So I'm very excited to see where all this goes, and I wish him nothing but luck. And I think that this interview gives you a really good mindset of how you can take what you're doing, don't have to compromise too much, but find a way to show it to the rest of the world, and try to find a way to get to the rest of the world to believe in your vision, your dream, your possibility. So hopefully, whatever it is that you're making for yourself, whatever it is that you're having fun doing right now, you can find a fan base of people to do it for, people that will help you produce it at a larger and bigger scale, and just keep the good time going. Keep the fun happening all the time in your life and really have a career that is your identity, it's your hobby, it's your passion, it's everything that you want to do. To hear this in complete episode and a couple of Alex's other appearances, head over to aidpodcast.com. Consider becoming a member of the Circle of Trust. You can hear today's full episode as well as our archive of over 800 episodes. Right now, let's go to DesignerCon 2017 when I interviewed the great Alex Pardee, AID 681.
Yeah, he's a jerk.
Yeah, they like look through you. They're very piercing. So you guys are just on the road.
Yes.
Kind of getting back to doing it for fun and meeting people.
Mm-hmm.
How do you guys come up with a wild idea like that?
That was actually, so a lot of almost everything I do is a reaction to something that's happening in my life. That was a mixture of me selfishly wanting inspiration and also wanting to kind of see, I guess just like, it was the introvert thing is weird because being an artist, it's transformed. Like I got into art because it was private, but then the reality of it was, you want to be in a magazine, we want to see your face. It's like, what? Why does that matter? But it doesn't, it just matters now. That's what it is. So, okay, I'll accept that. Here's a picture of my face. Okay, we want to know a little bit more about your personal life. It's like, wait, what? Why? I didn't get into this. But it's just the way people absorb media is changed and things change. So where like everything is a personality-based thing now. It's like you want to excel in art.
Right.
You accept that your personality is part of it. Your lifestyle is part of it. So I had to accept that I needed to step out of my bubble. Like I just needed to. It was like, I'm not going to get anywhere without being out of my comfort zone. So the sketch for sketch thing was basically like, I want to get out of my comfort zone.
Yep.
The only way to do, I still get nervous. I mean, a little less now, but if I would do a signing and there'd be 20 people, my hands would shake. I would apologize constantly. Like, I'm sorry, I'm freaking out, whatever. And so the idea for the sketch for sketch thing was like, if we hit 20 cities in a month and every one of those cities, I'm drawing 200 drawings for people and meeting people face to face, by the end, I might have leveled up a little bit. And I might get a little bit of comfort. And in the meantime, maybe inspire some of these kids from towns like Buffalo that don't have these kind of events. So we hit smaller towns, Reno, Buffalo, Athens, Georgia, or whatever. So Salt Lake City. So that was...
Do you realize, though, when you do that event that, you're helping yourself out, right? You're getting out of your comfort zone. Anything that sort of puts you in a weird headspace. And traveling will make you fucking mental.
Of course.
And that's a great sort of like, you're breaking down the walls, just deteriorating like these constructs that you have. But what I found interesting about it from the shopkeep and looking at it from a distance is, here are kids standing in line with a sketch that they're sweating bullets, that they're going to give it to you. So even though you were kind of doing it for your own thing, you're taking other clammy, pale basement dwellers, making them come out, hand the most precious personal thing. Like some of those kids, the first time they ever showed their artwork to a professional artist was sketch for a sketch. And I went out and talked to them while they were waiting for you guys to show up. There were kids out there that like, I could see their teeth sticking to their lips, their hands were sweating.
It was crazy. I mean,
like you put other people through the grind, which is rad because everybody had a fucking great time and everybody felt a little bit better about themselves because you guys were very gracious on being like, this is awesome. Who are you?
Well, we genuinely thought, we planned twice as many stops because we genuinely thought that no more than 20 people would show up. And so I was floored when we got to the first stop and we were there for 9 hours past what we had scheduled ourselves for. So
I just thought it was a really cool exercise of sort of, because you're right, a lot of us do go to art as escapism, but if you want to follow it as a career, like these cons, I mean, there are the artists that have the con of where they kind of show up and act distraught, like, oh, people caring about my stuff. But then there's the other people that do the customer service. Like I just had Ron English sitting in that chair, and he just will get a long line, and everybody that comes up, he draws, he talks to him, he communicates. Like it can be a part of the gig. Yeah. So for you, how comfortable do we feel now in public? Are we over this?
Oh no, I've been peeing this whole time. No.
I wish that was true. But how did you finally get out? Like for the person who's listening, that's like, I'm identifying with the first part of the story. Tell them for the second part of this. How do you get over it?
So the thing that I realized was that it's not about what I would draw or what I would say. It was about the experience. And this is taken from me going and meeting people that I admire. It's like, it's just the experience. It's the interaction.
Yeah.
So once I really don't care what I draw now or what I sketch. It's like the fact that like I'm getting a chance, and that's kind of the background noise that's happening while I'm trying to say, hi, how are you? Where are you from? And trying to learn and still get some inspiration from people that I meet. It's really awesome that just the fact that somebody would stand in line longer to 5 minutes to get something that is like basically like a high five is insane. I love it. It's very, very nice.
I'm surprised anybody's ever listened to 5 minutes of this bullshit that I put out every day. So for you now, when you go out and you do this,
yes,
do you look forward to it? Do you get a rush? You like meeting the people? Like, are we completely opposite from where you started?
Oh yeah, I do, because I rely on the support.
Yeah.
And it's like there's no way that I would ever not want to be as supportive of the people that support me.
Yeah.
You know, like, it's like, of course, like I'm going to work my ass off just to like say hi.
So the artwork that you create, right? You have a very, very distinct style. And I see people that are inspired by it, and, you know, nobody quite nails it like you do. So for these characters that you have, it all feels like it fits into sort of this dark sort of world. Do you see that in your mind? Like when you sit down and make these creatures, do you know exactly where it's going to go? How many eyeballs, how many things? Or is it just a jam session and it gets to where it gets?
It's not so much as a jam session as like I can't, I don't want to say can't, but like I don't like trying to visualize something ahead of time because I get frustrated and it turns into like, you know, if I'm going to be like, oh, you know, it'd be cool, a football player that's a fish. And then like, it just doesn't work. Right. So, but
it is disappointing.
Why is that?
No, it's disappointing. Like we all have an idea what we want to do in our mind, and if you chase that down, you never get there.
Right. And as being as a perfectionist and a little bit of OCD as well, like I never will get there.
Right.
So the only way that I feel good and where my confidence lies is my imagination. So I'm overly confident at this point in my imagination that I can scribble a shape. Like a shape that looks interesting to me, and I can make something that is unique and might look interesting to somebody else.
Yeah.
Like so, like and even more so, I can make a story about that. And then that's what those two things coming together in that process is what inspires me to finish the piece and make it even more unique and make a world around it.
So how hard is it for you to get hired where you don't have the ability to make it up as you go along?
That was very hard.
Okay.
And so much so that was the discipline side of this kind of career path that was and still is very stressful. Knowing that I couldn't exist on my own by creating a market of art that doesn't exist.
Yeah.
Right? Like that no one's demanding like, oh, we want a weird bright thing with weird teeth and, you know, 4 toes.
You got another scary fish guy?
Yeah, totally. So like that was the discipline part. And every time I took any kind of job artistically that had any kind of art direction, it was a journey for me. I could never show that it was.
Yeah.
But it was something that technically should take me 4 hours, and I would charge them for 4 hours. It would take me 16 because I'm correcting it and overworking and how do I, you know, looking at my hands and looking at these things and stuff. But that also gave me, it was lessons, you know, so it gave me these lessons that I would be like one, a good example is, a few years ago, I got hired by Zack Snyder, the director. You know, he did Watchmen and Dawn of the Dead. He was making a movie called Sucker Punch.
Right.
So I got hired as a concept artist, kind of designer. I created a lot of the, I guess, props for that film. When I got hired for that job, that was one of the most terrifying experiences for me going into the job because of the fact that everything I've drawn up into that point was organic.
Right.
Everything that I'd drawn up into that point was basically male because I didn't know how to draw girls.
Yeah, it's hard.
I mean, I draw ugly, and in my mind, girls are very, you know, they have more unique or more subtle features. They're not wrinkly, old, gross, dangly men. So
the hardest day I ever had as an illustrator is I got hired to work on a children's book, and I had to do the character design. And it was kids that form a rock band, and the drummer was a girl. And so it's a 13-year-old, 14-year-old girl. I drew her boobs for a whole day.
Exactly.
And I was just like, these are too big. These suggest too much. And like trying to nail prepubescent boobs. I didn't draw her pubes. I drew her boobs. But to try to get the perfect little... it took me all day. Exactly. It was very stressful. So I can understand when you're in the world of like gore and grotesque, how do I make something that's a little bit more sophisticated and polished?
And even more specific than that, I don't draw like a lot of mechanical. I don't no sharp edges, no right angles, no straight lines. Basically, so when
this is not a good job for you.
Well, when I got hired, it was like, we love your art. We want you to draw girls and guns and robots. And I was like, those are the three things that I don't draw. But I couldn't say that because it was like this opportunity that I wanted to take so badly.
Yeah.
And so it was like, done, I'm on it. So
that's the thing. They had you because it was the type of work that you want to do.
Yeah.
You're a storyteller. You obviously want to get into films. You want to do this type of stuff, but it's the things that you don't draw. My list is drum sets and cars at 3/4 angles. A car at like a 3/4 angle is the worst thing ever to have to illustrate.
Yeah. I drew a car once.
Yeah. Just always go profile. It's way easier. So you're in that moment where every artist is, where you're like, okay, it's either my dream job, but there's always that caveat of this is what I've wanted to do forever. It's due on Monday and it's Friday on a holiday weekend. Like there's always sort of that like kick in the dick.
Yeah.
And that was yours, is that it was the subject matter, but you have to take it. So how did you get over it? Because I remember the movie looked quite great and people were celebrated, and at that moment I was like, you used to be like a guy that like stopped by my store. I'm like, yeah, my friend worked on that movie, because you know everybody wants to know a guy that worked on a movie. Right. So how did you labor through and come over those obstacles and do the best job that you could?
Well, it was a very fast-paced job.
Yep.
I didn't have time to necessarily fail.
That's probably
which
good.
A lot of my jobs are. I didn't have time to overthink a lot of stuff. So I basically just, whereas my normal sketching process would be like, I'll scribble something like even for an hour or two, and then I'll start refining it. My sketching process was up to 10 hours. You know, so it's like I'm not even going to start making a final piece of art until I do this. So, you know, it was serious. Like it was just like instantly thrown into like, how do I draw this? How do I, like, here's 500 reference photos. Let me just look at all these and draw these real quickly so I can maybe apply things to this. And, you know, and getting likenesses, I had to draw like Vanessa Hudgens. That was insane. Like, you know, like that was weird.
Yeah. So when it was all said and done, did you look back and say that I enjoyed this and it made me better for the...
I did. And the reason why is because I had the support. Zack Snyder, I was working directly with Zack Snyder.
Good guy?
Great guy.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the reason why he was great was because most clients don't know what they want, and if they do, they don't understand the artistic development side of it.
Right.
Whereas Zach went to art school, came up as a storyboard artist, a concept designer himself. So he just said, I trust you. So he could have thought what I did was shit, but he didn't tell me. So he was just like, this is great. We love this. Let's go. And like, and you know, there were some subtle notes here and there and stuff, and I dealt with studio notes and everything, but ultimately it was like I was surprised with how easy, not easy the job was, but how easy the response and the communication was with something of that caliber.
Have you done that kind of work since?
I have. I've done a few things, all kind of equally weird, and I just got done doing last year another one of this really incredible experiences was I got hired as a creature designer for a space comedy. There was a Seth Rogen, Evan Goldberg kind of thing, directed by my friend, well now my now friend Rodney Rothman, and it was a parody of, you know, a horror movie in space, and it was this thing where like, we want to give you full creative freedom, but we don't really know what we want, so just go nuts. So I went nuts, and then it was just every day was kind of like, this is cool, let's do this. And it was a really, really amazing experience because they let me do what I wanted.
Does this project have a name? Is it released?
The day before it started filming, it got canceled.
Oh, fantastic. Fantastic.
But it was an amazing experience for me. So I feel terrible for everybody involved in it that didn't get to do it, but I got a really good opportunity to do it. So that was fun.
So with your artwork, the way that you color things, like your use of color is pretty different than most folks. How did that come about? I mean, I know that's a real open-ended question, but like, there's not anybody else who sort of like pours the color through it, and it's such a different take on applying color theory.
I think it got you know, I don't want this to sound like too lame, but or I guess like I don't want to sound like a con man, but I never learned how to paint. I didn't learn color theory. I didn't learn that kind of stuff, but I became a little more confident in drawing when I started painting. So to fool myself, I would legitimately just take a bunch of colors that I didn't know if they went together. I would splatter them down and I would draw on that. So that became this thing where like the splatters would kind of help dictate what I was drawing. And like, even though like I didn't purposely make a turquoise and pink arm, but that's happened to be where the ink was. So when I would continue drawing around it and kind of pulling the shapes forward, that became this cool turquoise and pink arm.
Wow.
And I got gratification from it.
So sort of following,
because I had never seen it before.
So sort of following that as your sketch allows you to create a very different looking world, because you're following all these different like organic cues that just sort of developed in front of you.
Yes.
That's ass backwards. Hey, I learn something every day when I do this show. I've never heard that before. That's fantastic.
Yeah. So it was, and it was one of those things where it was kind of like I was able to fool myself and in turn fool anybody that was absorbing my artwork, that it was the appearance that I knew how to paint when I didn't. I knew how to draw on top of a bunch of splattery shit.
So how do you reverse engineer that? Like now, if you started out that way, do you still just throw stuff down and follow it, or?
Yeah, I do, because I don't like to overthink my process too much. But in the meantime, what that did was that allowed me to provide a mid-tone texture. Basically, it was like, I learn things one step at a time when I'm, I do everything myself. And so learning is a slow process still, but in those times it was like that would even evolve on its own, where it's like the very first times I did that was literally a splatter of paint and an ink drawing over it. The next time was like, well, maybe I can add some shading to where the arm is, and that makes that blue darker, and that stands out from the blue that's behind it.
Right.
I'll do that. Then it's like, oh, maybe next time I can add a highlight on top of that. And so now it's kind of like I still use that weird kind of splattery color as a start, but I paint on top of it, and sometimes that splattery color doesn't even show in the end.
But it just kind of,
it gives me a guide. It gives me a comfort blanket.
It like loosens you up and gets you going. Your job sounds fun.
My job's awesome.
You're just making shit up as you go through it. That's kind of rad.
Yeah, it is. It's scary every day, but as long as I pretend to be fearless, it's awesome.
Well, that's part of it, right? So with all of this work that you do and you've been put out, going back around, where are you at now with your love of publishing?
Well,
and being a storyteller.
Yeah, I have more of a love for creating IPs, I guess, more than anything. And the way that they come out that's what I'm pivotable. That's like what changes, like, I guess the term storyteller is loose as well too, because I'm more of like a world builder. I like the people when I got older, I didn't really realize this when I was younger, but as I got older, I realized the types of artists that I was, inspired by were less artists and more world builders. Like, and I know you're a big Disney fan, but Walt Disney and Disneyland specifically is something that had a very lasting effect on me and still does. Whereas like my mom has an imbalance in her equilibrium, so we can never travel. But she can go in a car in a straight line. So we would always go to Disneyland. I'm from San Francisco, so we would always just drive down the I-5 and go to Disneyland. That was our vacation. And the thing that I always loved about Disneyland was that everything there is so thought out from the point that you get into the line to the end of the ride. And it's almost like, sure, you can go there and you can stand in a line for 2 hours and just not paying attention and bullshit with your friends and then get on this fun ride and go, woo, yay, that was fun. Or you can read the first sign and read the second sign and look at these things and envelop yourself in this whole world of like, oh my God, Thunder Mountain's like a weird ghost town with haunted and, and then by the time the ride is like this reward, like it's like, oh my God, I just rode through this world. This is cool. And that's what I like.
as somebody who has OCD and I'm looking like you, I'm looking for organization in this world. And like, I always have to make deals with myself. I'll do this for 20 minutes, this for 10 minutes, and that for 20 minutes. Cause I don't like decision making. So I don't know what the fuck to do. So I just make a set of rules. I love how they've just thought everything out for us there. Like that line experience you're talking about, like that's great life design. You just kind of go with the flow. You can enjoy all the little things and there's a big reward at the end of it.
Yeah. And that's the approach that I've taken with not only my paintings, but my, my worlds that I've created outside of that. But like even my paintings, I oftentimes add stories to them or make them parts of series or whatever that in reality, you can just look at that and go, that's a pretty cool, colorful, dark painting. I don't really know if I like it, but it's cool. Or you can be like, oh, that's a pretty cool painting. And then you can dive into more of it, like more of the world and more of the story. And then you're like, oh, wow, I didn't realize that like, that finger that he had was actually a toe that was surgically grafted later on in life. You're like, that makes that little thing interesting.
Yeah. So for you and being the world builder, if I could grant you one wish, what kind of a world would you want to build? Would you want to build a movie, a cartoon?
Oh, no, I want to do a theme park. I'm Disney all the way. Like I want to let's make a theme park.
Can I work in your theme park?
Yes.
I mean, is that really? I mean, what is that? Would be the dream of all dreams?
It would, and I actually recently got really, really bummed out because ever since I was a kid, my dream theme park was making a theme park out of inside anatomy parts, and then Rick and Morty fucking did it. But that just pushed me to be like, all right, now I got to think of something else.
How much thought have we put into this dream park?
Not much.
Not much. So you don't have
but this is a wish.
But I know, but is there any reality to it? Like, is there a sketch of what it could look like? Is there an idea?
No, we'll see now. And I think obviously there's not a sketch for it. No, I mean, in the past I've drawn stuff out that I'm like, oh, this would be a cool, like fun ride. But I think the reality of it is definitely coming more and more of a possibility with the fact of like, marketing companies are creating whole haunted houses for the It movie, or like we're making even VR experiences, which VR interests me as well. So
I do not want to go into a VR world that you designed. It would scare the shit out of me.
I mean, but that's the point. That's what I want to do. Yeah. No, like so there's maybe it's not something that's as traditional as a $50 billion Disneyland, but there's something that I'm going to do sometime that'll be like that. So
as far as storytelling go, like if you had to go into a studio right now, can you pitch?
Sure.
You got something in your back pocket?
Yeah, sure. Why not?
Multiple things. I don't like your first idea. What else you got?
Oh,
you got other ideas?
No, I do. So I'm
not asking you to pitch them. Just do you have these things?
Oh, I was going to pitch it.
Pitch. Yeah, no. Let's pitch.
No, it's secret now.
I'll play the exec. What's up, Mr. Pardee? What can I do for you?
But yeah, no, I'm actually like really. I'm excited now. Like one of the things that I am focusing on now is pitching these IPs and doing cartoons and doing films and stuff like that. So I've been kind of like developing stuff and having TV meetings for the first time, which is really weird, but exciting.
That's great.
So, yeah.
And what you've done organically is that you bring an awareness to your art. Like you're not just some guy that has an interesting portfolio. Like you have awareness, you have a fan base. There's if you got a project green lit, they know that a certain amount of people are already going to show up. That's kind of the prize of doing it for so long and working your ass off, right? So when you go into these meetings, there's already a little bit of respect for you in the room, right?
Yeah, a little bit.
How nervous is that type of thing for you? Like, because one thing about the arts is we all speak a language. The first time you get a client, you realize not everybody speaks our language. When you go in those rooms and there's people that are evaluating everything down to the dollar, the ROI, like, do you lose a little bit of your self-confidence as you're telling the story, or do you just kind of get into a zone?
Yeah, I mean, that's another one of those things that the discipline comes in, because I was never been a public speaker, never been that comfortable. So presenting something like that is very nerve-wracking, and of course you overthink it and stuff. But it's another one of those things where I was like, well, I'm going to put myself in that position because why not? Like the worst thing that can happen is the absolute worst thing that can happen is I throw up or pass out or shit on their desk or something, and then they sue me. But that's not that bad.
But think about it this way. You could go there and they could just say no, or you could tell all your friends like, yo, I just walked out of a room at Disney and I threw up all over the boardroom table. Like it's a legendary story.
So there you go.
So even when you do the worst thing in life, you still kind of walk away with the story, right?
Totally. Yeah.
So, what is the workflow of your life? Monday through Friday? Do we try to keep what sort of rules do we have on the work?
Man, I don't know.
You just make it up as you go along?
No, I need to, because the age is getting there. I mean, I'm not old. I know that, but I am 40, and so I have gone in the past. I've gone weeks without sleeping. I've gone, and I can't do that anymore. So I'm trying to start getting more on a schedule, more focused. But I've never had a manager. I've never had an assistant, and not out of pride, and I was so DIY for my whole life that I never really knew how to let go of control and do those things. So I always would put myself in the position of doing these things and forcing myself to, end up in the hospital with a heart murmur or whatever.
There you go, friends. Hanging out with the great Alex Pardee. This is just a little 25-minute snippet of over an hour interview. I've had Alex on the show 2 other times, once with the great bone thrower and once with everybody's best bud, Uncle Skinner. I like the name Uncle Skinner. He should go with that more often. Today's episode and all of these are just little shorts pulled out of our archive. We have over 800 episodes at aidpodcast.com. Become a member of the Circle of Trust. You unlock the full interviews as well as our archive. I'm telling you, man, the more I learn from doing this job is we are more alike than you think. So by all means, make something that's unique, make something that's different, but remember there's similar people with same stories like you facing the same problems. And it's my job to capture those and bring them back to you. And that works with your support. Sign up today at aidpodcast.com. I'll see you here tomorrow with Ian Jones Corte as Breaking into Hollywood continues.